Welcome back to Around the Block podcast. Today we have the luxury of Joe Riddle, the Grants Program Manager for Pinellas County, Florida's Housing and Community Development Department. Joe brings nearly 35 years of experience in housing and community development across local, county, and state government. He currently leads the team responsible for administering and overseeing the county's Community Development Block Grant, aka CDBG program. Throughout his career, Joe has held key leadership positions, including Director of Community Reinvestment in Columbus, Georgia, the Home Investment Partnership Program Manager for the state of Arkansas, and Housing Manager for the city of Clearwater, Florida. His expertise spans a wide portfolio of federal and state housing and community development programs, including HUD Consolidated Planning Programs, NSP, CARES Act, Emergency Rental Assistance, Home ARP, and CDBG DR for disaster recovery. Joe also serves nationally as the Vice President of the National Association for County Community and Economic Development, aka what we call NACCED, where he has held multiple leadership roles. And then we are literally excited to have him on the episode. Marty, tell me some of your highlights.
Well, in today's session with Joe, I relationships were a big focal point for him. He's spanned from these different cities to states to county. Now we called it the trifecta, and he's had to establish relationships in each one of those areas in the
Yeah.
communities, and so that's been really big for him to be able to network and help people. So I think that's also another takeaway was he was really big into helping others in his
Yeah.
community, which is awesome.
I think my biggest takeaway was the thank yous. That resonated with me just because I'm similar to Joe, and I have a box of just every thank you card anybody's ever given me in my entire career. I'm a modern minimalist, but that's the one thing I hold on to. When I have a bad day, I go look at those thank yous, and I think for people interested in housing and community development, like it is kind of a thankless job. So when you do get thanked for the work that you do and hearing the story of that third grader telling him like not the definition of community development, but like, oh, you help people and
Yeah.
resonating, those were the two big takeaways that I really appreciated Joe sharing with us today.
Yeah, I think folks are going to really love this episode, especially for people that are new to the industry and learning from a what we would call a goat in the industry.
He's a
So
total goat.
yeah, total goat. So yeah, enjoy the episode, folks.
Welcome back to Around the Block podcast. We are excited today to have Joe Riddle from Pinellas County, Florida, on the episode, talking about why community development professionals do what they do. Joe, introduce yourself, and we're excited to have you here.
Thank you, Leah. Good to see you guys again. I am Joe Riddle. I am the Pinellas County Housing and Community Development's Grants Program Manager. This is now marking 8 years with the county here in the department. I now have covered local, county, and state. The only government work that I hadn't done yet is federal work, and still got a few more years. We'll see if we can get to that somewhere down the road.
The
Awesome,
trifecta.
Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe, you've been in community development for over 35 years, which is incredible. Like the history of that alone, starting as a CDBG specialist in Columbus in the mid 90s through your current role at Pinellas County. Most people do not stay in that field for that long. What kept you engaged this entire time over 35 years?
Well, as I've kind of thought a little bit about that, Leah, I'm not sure I was looking for a community development career. Back at the end of my internship working on my Master of Public Administration, I was mailing out somewhere from 5 to 10 resumes a week, getting 6 to 8 rejections. And I finally got an acceptance for an economic development specialist job in Columbus, Georgia. They offered me to bring me down for an interview and everything else. So still, I was working on my internship. So I sat down with the city of Little Rock's economic development specialist for about 2 to 3 hours and learned what an economic development specialist would be doing and everything else. And flew to Columbus, Georgia, and for the interview. Sit down. We're about 45 minutes into the interview. And he looked and he says, would you be interested in being a community development block grant specialist? I said, yes, but what is community development? So he explained that to me, and that was my first job. Um, at that point, I was going to be a city manager or assistant city manager 3 or 4 years down the road. And 18 years later, I left Columbus, Georgia. So, I think it was um, something in that process. And then as I was thinking about this, my city manager, as I was leaving Columbus, Georgia, says, Joe gets to go do something that a lot of us don't get to go do. He gets to go be back with his family, and he gets to
Mm,
do a job that he enjoys. So I guess the answer, a long-winded answer to that, Lee, is something I've enjoyed. Being
yeah.
a part of these offices that I've worked in, the people I've worked with, not only in the office, but the communities I've worked with, has been an enjoyment. And that's why I've stuck with it this long, I guess.
Yeah, Joe, most of us fall into, I feel like, housing economic community development by accident. No one really goes to school to be a houser or work in community development. So that's awesome. Thank you
Well,
for sharing your
I've
story.
got, I've got an accounting degree and a master's in public administration. Accounting degree doesn't scream community development by any stretch of the means. So
Yeah.
you're exactly right.
Joe, it's so great to see you. I know I've known you for many years. I did not know you back when you worked in Columbus. I did not know you when you worked for the state of Arkansas, but I did meet you when you worked at Clearwater and now with Pinellas County. Your journey's been one of interest. I mean, you see some folks stay at one city, one county for their entire
Mhm.
career, but you've been able, like you said, the trifecta of going from city, state, city, county. You've had the trifecta experience other than federal. You know what has that progression of going from managing or analyzing city budgets to managing these housing projects and programs and doing a statewide experience in Arkansas to what's that progression taught you in housing and community development?
I really think, Marty, what it's taught me is the importance of relationship.
Yeah.
It's the relationships with those communities. And one of my best relationship stories and everything else was when I was very young in my career. I had the opportunity to do anti-drug marches in this neighborhood that we were working in.
Wow.
And it was one of our areas that we were in that had a very bad drug problem. So, but it was an area that we had designated as one of our redevelopment areas, one of the areas that we were going to bring back. And I had the opportunity to sit and talk with those folks and understand what they wanted for their neighborhoods. And it wasn't exactly what we had planned for them. So we had to change our plans to help them. But I built that relationship in that first couple of years. And then when I came back 10 years later as director, I still had friends out in that neighborhood and I was able to see, you know, the internal staff. I think one of the things in the budget office that really helped me is I understood how the entire city worked. And then when I did become a director, I had those relationships with the directors in the other departments to be able to go back to. And being able to apply those relationships and build those communities and be a part of those communities and have friends after I got done was important. But those relationships, I think, is the biggest things I've taken away, Marty.
That's excellent that you say that because Marty and I talk about relationships all the time and how important it is and the authenticity that goes behind those relationships and truly caring about human beings as well. Joe, you've worked in this industry for a very long time. A lot of people don't understand the impact of HUD programs, specifically CDBG, which for those listeners who don't know what that means, it's Community Development Block Grant, which is HUD funded, as well as the Home Investment Partnership. What these actual programs do, you've managed billions of dollars across these programs over the life of your career. What's a story that illustrate why this work matters and what actually happens with these grants when they get allocated correctly to serve your community?
And I go back to that community there in Columbus, Georgia. When we first got there and started working, we were purchasing vacant property, we were purchasing derelict property and tearing down and assembling those lots. We were also running rehab programs in there to help people put a fresh coat of paint on their house and take some pride back in their neighborhoods. I left and was gone those 8 years and came back. And while I was gone those 8 years, we had begun selling those properties back to nonprofits to build new housing in them.
Oh, cool.
See in these neighborhoods, and there I have one here similar in Pinellas County. You see neighborhoods that have safe parks for children to go play in.
Uh-huh.
You have sidewalks that are connecting them to the school district, to the schools, so they're not walking in the streets to get to the schools. You have neighborhoods that are the derelict buildings and the slum and blighted structures, they're gone, wherein replaced with new and used new structures. You have community centers and recreation centers for safe places for the children to learn and play. And you see a lot of homes that are safe, decent, and affordable for everybody to live in. And that's what these programs bring to the table for any community across the country.
I love how you broke that down because it's extremely hard to explain housing community development to most people across the country, and understanding that these programs are meant to serve people, and creating those really cohesive communities where you thrive, where you live.
Yeah.
Little,
It's not glamorous work.
a
No.
little story about that. You explain. It's difficult to explain to someone
Yeah.
community development is, and I wanted. I took to the Board of County Commissioners about 3 years ago. I'd always, I told folks what I did, and that was community development. But I actually went out and looked up a definition for community development. Community development is a process where community members are supported by agencies to identify and take collective action on issues which are important to them. Community development empowers members and creates stronger communities. The county is the catalyst that provides the funding and support to those agencies who in turn carry out the actions to make our communities stronger and better places to live. That same year, I went to a third grade class. I didn't read them the definition, but I told them everything I did, about building new houses and parks and this, that, and another. And then I says, what do you think community development does? Pays for police, pays for firefighters, those type answers. And then I had a third grade Girl Scout raise her hand. She looked me in the eye and she says, "You help people."
Uh,
And I'd done all this, but I had never boiled it down to we help people.
yeah.
Help people in their communities. We help them have better lives. That's what we do as community development professionals.
Gotta love that third grader.
Yes, it was great. And I've often said, now I know what I do. I've been doing it 30 years, but I never had understood exactly what I was doing.
You probably answered this question because I had this kind of set up for you, but I mean, it's not glamorous work. It's not in the headlines, unless there's a problem, of course, sometimes. But
Mhm.
you know, it's not putting out fires or police work. It's you know why this work, Joe. I mean, just hearing that is probably your why. I think helping people certainly it sounds like that's probably at the core of what you driven into your 35 years of experience.
Yeah, it's the helping people and that next aspect, and I go back and I kind of tie that to my parents. My parents were teachers for almost 40 years apiece. And when I stopped and I thought about how many thousands of people that my parents reached out and touched in their almost 40 years of career, I think some of that stuck. Being able to help and do things for people as they had done through their career. So I really believe it's that helping aspect, that being able to
Mhm.
be part of that group and helping somebody get a hand up and move forward.
That's awesome. Joe, one of the things I was going to piggyback Marty off of here is, the people always ask, the what's in it for me question when you take a job. Is it, what's in it for me? Is it a higher salary? Is it better benefits, more PTO? Like the typical things that people go and do in their careers and try to advance. But in this field, it's different. I feel like everybody we talk to in housing community development, their what's in it for me is never because I got a really great salary and a bonus at the end of the year with 10 weeks of PTO. You've turned down opportunities before to move on and stayed in this field through recessions and administration changing. And we know how incredibly challenging that is every time you have an administration changing, whether it's at the local level, the state level, or the federal level. What does this work give you that keeps you coming back? And I know you've shared already the giving back to people, but is there anything else that's deeper for you that keeps you doing this work?
It's the thank yous, you know. A story I tell about the best thank you that I think is stuck with me the longest was there in the state of Arkansas where I was running the affordable housing program. We had provided some funding to a nonprofit in central Arkansas and had the opportunity. They called me and said, "Hey, we finished building these 5 new houses. Want you to come out and meet the folks and see what we've done." So it was about an hour and a half drive out to a little community called Humnoke, Arkansas. Humnoke is out in eastern Arkansas in the rice fields in the state of Arkansas, in the duck hunting capital of the world.
My husband wants to go there.
Best duck hunting in the world. And they had shown me some pictures of this, well, I won't say house. There wasn't much left of it that this little lady had been living in. And so we go out there and we pull up. And like I said, this is a 1,300 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath little brick home that they had built for her to replace the structure she had. Go in, she was 82 years old and gorgeous house. But as we walk in the door, there's duck feathers flying everywhere.
Oh, geez.
I was like, what is this? Her sources of income was that the duck hunters would shoot and kill the ducks and then bring them to her to pluck so that they could transport them back home.
Wow.
Again, she was very grateful, wonderful house, but that was the only source of income and the only way she knew how to do things. So here is brand new house, but she went back to the way she was, but she got to do it in much better comfort and everything in this brand new house. That same trip I had, 2 small children give me a hug for their house that they had got. It's the thank yous and everything. Being able to go to the nonprofits that we work with and, be able to go back and do it over and over because they know who you are. They can come to you and get what they need and be able to work through situations. Again, those relationships, but a lot of it's just the thank yous for helping us do what we need to do.
No, that's, Joe, that you just remind a flashback just went through my brain right now. The last project I worked on at the city before I came to Neighborly was a homeowner who owned her house, but she was basically living homeless in her house. She didn't have running water. She didn't have functioning toilets. She had no washer, dryer, no refrigerator. And I still have a picture of her on my fridge that I look at all the time. But that story is incredible, and I can't even imagine having flying duck feathers all over my house.
It's a soft landing. Let me just,
She could have had a side hustle and made some pillows too.
No, I was gonna say she probably has a nice pillow. But no, it's a great story, Joe. Hey, I heard that that you are now vice president of the NACCED organization, which is the National Association of County and Community and Economic Development, nationwide. So, congrats to you. So, with that, leadership role now, but also as you've managed teams and you've set policy, for these types of organizations. You're not the mayor, you're not the county commissioner, but how do you lead and drive from the position that you're in, today?
I think it all goes back again, Marty, to those relationships that I've built. Being able to work with that nonprofit and provide them funding, support them to get their project done, and work through any issues that they have. But they know when they come to me to get the funding and being able to do that, that we're going to get the project done. We may hit a road bump here and there, but we're going to be able to work our way through it. Those relationships, when they come back a year later or 2 years later, they know that they're going to be able to do their project and get it done in a timely manner. In that same vein, they also know that if there is, they can't do it, I'm going to work with them to find a solution. Or I may pick up the phone and say, hey, I've got some extra money here. What can I help you do? Those relationships last forever.
Yeah.
You mentioned I started out here in the city of Clearwater for a year and a half, but I met several of the folks here at the county, as well as the other municipalities here in the county, that I had a year and a half's worth of relationship to go when I started here at the county, and those have continued and built. And I think that's also the same thing with county staff. After being here 8 years, I know who to pick up the phone and
Yeah.
call in the public works department if I need something done in the landscaping or the right of way or something like that. So again, the most important thing I found through this whole journey is those relationships that I've been and relationship being able to pick up the phone now after 30 years of dealing with consultants and whatnot to ask that question of, hey, can I do this or can I do that? And it's something, like I said, I've got some 25-year relationships with consultants that if I need a question asked, all I got to do is pick up the phone and I get that question asked.
The follow-up question to that. So if you're new to the industry, and you've been, hey, do you want to manage CDBG, or kind of that proposition from your city manager or what have you? What advice would you give somebody new in this industry to help develop those relationships? Because you've bounced around from Georgia to Arkansas to Florida, so
Mhm.
yeah, you probably had experience, establishing new relationships in new locales. So how do you do that?
I think the most important part of that, Marty, is watching your supervisor or your manager or your peers that are here in the departments and watch and see who they're talking to and pay attention and get those introductions. But you sit back and watch and pay attention to who they're dealing with because those are the folks you need to be dealing with as well. And I think you mentioned earlier about NACCED, Mark. We've actually
Mhm.
started a new to CD cohort in our membership for those folks that are 1 to 2 years into or less into their careers, where they can come meet with myself and other um, seasoned or valued and experienced yeah, seasoned. I like that
I
word.
like that.
Aged like fine wine.
There
Yeah.
you
Like
go.
fine wine.
We're
Yeah.
seasoned. There you, but we've started that cohort where we're meeting on a monthly basis to tackle some of these questions that we're talking about. Here's what we've been through and here's how we handled it. So again, paying attention to that supervisor, that manager in your departments to learn who you need to develop those relationships with.
Yeah, and Joe, one of the things I've got such a large network across the country. I see the people who are successful like yourself that have those relationships. You nurture them. It's not a just I'm taking from somebody. It's a mutual beneficial thing for your community. But I also see the folks who don't think they need to build relationships and can do it by themselves. And it doesn't really set you up for success in working through bureaucratic red tape or working through what you need to do for your community. After 35 years, you've seen the bureaucratic side, the red tape, the slow change, the policy limitations, the push and paper, not getting up to speed with technology. What's the hardest part of this work? And what's a win that made it all worthwhile for you?
I think the hardest part of this work is telling people no. I've been in situations there at the state of Arkansas where that family needed the rehabilitation or needed that funding for the down payment on that new house, and they didn't meet the income guidelines or they didn't meet something like that. Very difficult to tell them no. My nonprofit comes to me and says, hey, we want to do this. Nope, it's not an eligible thing. But I think on the other side, again, that relationships that we've talked about is then being able to work through whatever that issue is to be able to get them funding. Maybe we do it a little different and working through the various ways of using our rules and regs to make something happen. That's an important thing. And, and I don't know that I've really got a single greatest win of any thing I've done. Nothing really stands out that, was well above anything. It's everything that I've done through my career that I guess, if you pile it all on top of each other, it would be a big deal. But it's these small wins that, we get a new house, we get that sidewalk done or something like that. It's just that culmination of a lot of little ones, I guess, would end up being a big win.
So I would look at it from the viewpoint of maybe your win is consistency on how you show up over the last 35 years and how you serve your communities. I mean, that if you think about it, 35 years of consistency, that's a huge win.
Yes, ma'am. I get that is a good point. I would agree
Mhm.
with that. Yeah.
I heard you say, one of the challenges was saying no, and telling people no, or this funding isn't, an opportunity for you to leverage, or, I remember doing that myself for many years. But, taking that back to my question earlier about a young professional coming into this industry, um, would you tell them no to come into this industry, or would you tell them yes? And why? Why should the younger generation jump into this career? Um, and based on your perspective.
It is, I would tell them to come on because it is a lot of times something new on a weekly basis.
Mhm.
It might be a new issue or something that you've got to figure out, but it is an opportunity to do that and be able to get to that places where they have those wins and everything with the things that they do. But I would tell them to come. I would tell them to come on. It's unique. I've listened to our president when we were in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago. This is a nerdy small community of community development professionals that are out.
You're a
Um,
fun nerdy bunch, though. You are a fun nerdy bunch.
something along
Yeah.
those lines. But yeah, we and to Leah's point, a lot of times we get in our positions and we stay there. You know,
Mhm.
3 times now, but for the most part, somebody's going to get there and they're going to be there 25, 30 years. I guess like me trying to figure out exactly what we're doing and find that why somewhere down the road late in their career.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the perspective of evolution, right? The things have changed drastically with whoever's in the policy and administration and all of the things that are going on. You've had to work through multiple recessions, different administrations, changing policies, new technologies, lack thereof, shifting community needs. Like there's just a gamut over the last 35 years you've gone through. What fundamentally changed about community development since the 1990s and what has stayed the same?
What has changed? Not much. If you stop and you look at the CDBG program
Hmm.
created 52 years ago, we're still using the same rules and regs that we did 52 years ago.
Yeah.
The home program for affordable housing. Scary enough, I sat in the initial training for the home program in 1992 when it started. It's only changed twice,
Yeah.
trying to make it a little less complicated than it is. And, the last change just happened recently with the Road to Housing, the 20
Hmm.
Housing Act is now going to update it a little more, but it's not far enough. So, fundamentally, we're using the same thing that happened back in the 50s, which then says we've got to get CDBG reform started and make it more usable and better so that we can continue these programs that we've got. But fundamentally, nothing's changed very much. Some of the
It's
paper
scary.
documents I have in my desk drawer that I used 20 years ago with the highlighters and whatnot, they're still usable.
Yeah.
Which, Joe, I always try breaking things down when people ask me about housing community development, economic development, all of these different programs, and I explain like how archaic things are. I break it down in this way for me. We use the same tool that is that old, and think of it from the perspective as being a woman. You couldn't even open your own bank account. Could you imagine today in 2026 not being able to open up your own bank account?
Right.
Crazy, right? Like other things are evolving. You've got Harris County, Texas has the largest 3D housing printing project right now in the world. They've gotten creative, but when you're talking about CDBG and home, things just haven't really changed. And it blows my mind. I couldn't imagine being a woman today and not being able to open up my own bank account. And so using tools that old, I try to break it down for people in a simple way to understand why things are so hard to move forward.
Definitely. And then and again, every time, a lot of times it's like putting that square peg in the round hole. You
Hmm.
have to beat on it a while before you can get to where you can make it happen. And one of the things that the Road to Housing Act is trying to make the home program better, but our local zoning and laws in our neighborhoods that are holding up these very important affordable housing projects. So, yes, we've got to continue down that road. It's gotten a little better, but we've got to continue to work to make it easier to do these projects that we're working on.
So with that evolution, I would say one thing that I think in your community that's probably, I would assume, has increased is the amount of disasters that are occurring in Florida, and
Hmm.
your county has had to deal with that. I'm just curious, how has that changed the way community development and housing has been administered, knowing that those are always a threat, and those are continuing to be a threat to your county, to your citizens, and the work that you do. So,
Yep.
how,
Well,
how has that changed your work?
we run a housing rehab program that we focus on windows, doors, and roofs, so that we can harden some of our homes in order to withstand that next hurricane and those. Um, but yes, it makes us think along those lines when we're doing those projects. We're going to have to build better and harder structures in order to withstand um, those storms that we've had.
Looking, looking forward, with your leadership with NACCED, you're now running these programs for a large county. What are you focused on right now? And what do you think the field, where do you think we need to head in the next 10 years as far as industry?
Well, I think again, we've got to continue to advocate for these programs and make sure they're still around. As Leah has very aptly said, each administration has a new take and look on this. But one of those things that have been around and is very important to any lawmaker right now is the Community Development Block Grant Program. You know, the president may not like the program and cut it out, but those programs, as well as the affordable housing programs these days, are very important to the congressional delegations, and that's why you see them get put back into the budget. But we have to continue to work to hammer those and make sure those programs continue to be here. Um, and at some point, we've got to find some more money to do them with. Um,
What-
the you know Again, we were talking there on our legislation of the regs. We've got to continue to work at legislation to loosen some of those regulations to allow us to take care of our communities with the affordable housing, with our neighborhoods, and make it easier for us to be able to do these projects and these programs that we have going
So,
now.
so would you say if the government were to throw more money at these programs and funds, that would be the answer? Or is it more the legislation and the rules and that need to be changed to be more flexible? Or is money the answer to these programs?
Money's a big part of it, as
Yeah.
gone along. And one of those fundamental things that has changed a little bit is 30 years ago, you had one or two funding sources in a project, especially affordable housing project. Now you may have anywhere from 6 to 8. That money is the important part of it. But we could have all the money we need, Marty. We still got to have looser regulations to be able to get
the work.
So I think it's kind of a 50-50 deal there of, yes, we need the regulations and everything loosened so we can do these. But then a prime example, the Road to Housing Act. We got all of this new legislation, and we're going to loosen up the home program and make it easier to do, but no new funding to go with it. So there's a good example.
Joe, have you seen, here in Idaho, we've got some interesting dynamics happening right now where Meta moved in, and part of that deal was, okay, you've got to do community development. And they built a STEM school, and they're doing infrastructure projects, and they're giving back to the community. Have you seen anything like that in Florida with organizations like the Microns and the Metas of the world stepping in to help?
Well, unfortunately, in Pinellas County and a lot of Florida, there's not the big land mass to be able to do something that. Pinellas County is 90% built out, and the 10% that isn't built out is not being used. I think one of the things that I'm seeing here in the county is we've had a couple of the large hospitals that have begun building affordable housing, not only for their folks, but the community as a whole. So that's more of what I've seen here in Pinellas County in instances where the hospitals have built some affordable housing for their folks because the rents are getting so high that they can't find staff to come work because of the economy that's happening.
Yeah, no, we've got some of that going on here too. We have McCall, Idaho is like a very boutique place that people go to ski and their water sports, and the hospital there is also building workforce housing. So they don't have spots for their nurses and their staff to live when you have a resort town like that. Joe, it's been great chatting with you. 35 years of experience is just incredible. You've done phenomenal work. I know when I started here, they were like, you got to meet Joe Riddle from Pinellas, because I'm a very relationship heavy person as well. That's the first thing Marty told me when we went to the NACCED conference. You're vice president of NACCED now. Do you want to do a plug for your new logo, where you guys are calling yourselves?
Calling ourselves the local governments are us. And let's see. Oh, there it is.
Local governments are us. I love it.
Yes.
I wonder how many youngins watching this don't know what Toys R Us was back in the day.
But yes, that's local. That's the you look at that shirt and it kind of emphasizes the things that people do. There's CDBG, home, community, projects, grant deadlines. Yep, that's what we do. We're local governments are us.
That's awesome.
And real quick, you guys have an upcoming conference this fall with NACCED as well. I believe it's in Baltimore County in October.
Baltimore County, October 5th through the 8th in Baltimore County. I think we're going to be out near the University of Townsend in the community of Townsend there outside of Baltimore. A great opportunity for networking opportunities, building those relationships that we talk about, some great content of building and talking about all the things that our NACCED members do.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
You will see me there for sure.
Yes.
Last thing, Joe, before we close it out, anything you would like to share with anybody watching this episode on having a career in community development?
I think if you're that type person that is a giving person that doesn't look for a whole lot coming back to it other than those thank yous, this is a career that you need to be in. You get an opportunity to do some big things and be a part of big things. And you're not going to get gold plaques and you're not going to get gold watches or anything else. But you're going to get that opportunity for that child to come up and give you a hug and a smile and say thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Joe. This was such a great podcast episode.
Yeah,
thank you. Such a great career.
Thank you guys for including me. I appreciate it.
You bet. Appreciate you, Joe. Thanks.